$166,000. Gone. Not lost in the stock market. Not spent. Gone. Erased from the value of the average Canadian home, while the Prime Minister was busy making promises he couldn't keep. If you own a home in Canada, or you're trying to buy one, stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changes everything you think you know about this housing crisis. The benchmark price for a Canadian home hit $827,000 in February 2022. By February 2026, that same home was worth $661,000, a 20.1% collapse. The steepest decline since the early 1990s crash, the one that took nearly a decade to recover from. Toronto dropped from $190,000 to $873,000. Vancouver fell from $340,000 to just over $1 million. Both cities posted their lowest sales volumes in decades during 2025. And here's what no one in the mainstream press is connecting for you. This collapse didn't happen in a vacuum. Something caused it. And the cause is not what Carney's government wants you to believe. Let's go back to January 2025. Mark Carney stood in Ottawa and made a promise. We're going to build our way out of this crisis. 450,000 new homes per year by 2027. That's what Canada needs, and that's what we're going to deliver. He had the credentials. Former governor of the Bank of Canada, former governor of the Bank of England. He called housing Canada's defining economic challenge. He said his plan was different, supply-side reform, not demand-side subsidies. He said he understood markets better than any politician who came before him. If you believed him, you weren't naive. His plan, on paper, was structurally sound. Hold that thought, because what happened next is why this video exists. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation just released its April projections. Housing starts will hit 224,948 units in 2026. The following year, 212,550. That's less than half of the 450,000 Carney promised. It's also 54,000 fewer homes than were built in 2024, before his housing plan even took effect. The Canadian Real Estate Association downgraded its forecast for the second time this year on April 9th, cutting projected home sales from 530,000 to 485,000. Construction permits dropped 18% in the first quarter of 2026. The income required to service a mortgage on the average Canadian home climbed from $72,000 when Carney took office to $79,000 by March 2026. Affordability got worse under the plan designed to fix affordability. That is not a talking point. That is the data. And if you want to understand why, share this with anyone you know who is losing sleep over a mortgage right now, because the real answer is buried 3 layers deep and most people never get there. Here is what the headlines missed. Carney's plan required something no government can guarantee: time and stability. Housing construction runs 18 to 24 months from permit to occupancy. Projects approved in early 2026 won't deliver a single unit until late 2027 or 2028. Capital markets describe the framework as structurally sound, but temporally misaligned. The bank was being diplomatic. The plan needed 5 years of calm economic conditions. It got 3 months. In late March 2026, Brent crude spiked to $112 per barrel. Middle East tensions escalated. Canada's oil-dependent economy took an immediate hit. Consumer confidence collapsed. Unemployment moved from 5.3% to 5.9% in 8 weeks. The Bank of Canada had been cutting rates, 3 cuts between November 2025 and February 2026, bringing the policy rate to 2.25%. The goal was to stimulate housing activity. It didn't work. Fixed mortgage rates, tied to bond yields rather than the policy rate, moved in the opposite direction. The 5-year fixed rate climbed from 4.8% in February to 5.4% by mid-April. First-time buyers, the exact demographic Carney's plan was built for, pulled back entirely. Mortgage brokers reported a sharp drop in pre-approvals. Developers began shelving projects. Why start a condo tower when existing inventory isn't moving? Now here is the part that should make every Canadian stop and think. The oil shock didn't arrive from nowhere. It arrived from the same geopolitical environment that produced the tariff war, the pipeline dispute, the factory relocations, and the USMCA uncertainty. Bond markets priced in global instability. Fixed rates spiked. Consumer confidence cratered because tariff threats had already frozen investment. Job security evaporated in manufacturing centers. First-time buyers had no floor to stand on. Developers had no demand to build toward. Each of those causes traces back to the same external pressure. Carney promised to fix the one domestic crisis he thought he could control while the external storm played out. The external storm walked straight through the wall. The legislative pieces technically moved. Carney's forplex zoning legislation passed the House of Commons in December 2025. By March 2026, 3 cities had actually changed their bylaws. 3. Toronto delayed its vote. Vancouver approved changes, but exempted large portions of the West Side. The $14 billion infrastructure announcement came in January 2026, 5 years of transit-oriented development funding. Ontario Premier Doug Ford's government pushed back immediately on federal conditions. British Columbia signed on, but implementation won't begin until fiscal 2027 at the earliest. The Parliamentary Budget Officer ran the numbers in early April. Under current policies, Canada will add roughly 230,000 housing units in 2026. That's 220,000 short of the target. 220,000 homes that will not exist. And then there's the demographic reality that makes all of this worse. Canada added 1.2 million people through immigration in 2025. Population grew faster than housing stock by a ratio of nearly 4 to 1. RBC estimates Canada needs 600,000 new units annually just to stabilize, not improve, stabilize. Carney promised 450,000 and is delivering less than half. The target was already insufficient. The execution fell short of the insufficient target, and the external environment made the shortfall catastrophic. Carney's approval rating dropped to 39% in an Angus Reid poll published April 20th, down from 47% in January. Housing affordability ranked as the top concern, ahead of inflation and health care. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre didn't hold back during question period on April 14th. Homeowners are losing wealth, renters still can't afford anything, and this is the worst of both worlds. The NDP shifted its position in March, calling for emergency relief for first-time buyers. The Liberal caucus is visibly nervous. One MP told the Globe and Mail anonymously that the Prime Minister owns this now and it is not going well. So here is the real question. And I want you to sit with this before you go to the comments. Is this Carney's fault? He promised 450,000 homes per year. The market is delivering 212,000. That is a 238,000 unit gap between promise and reality. But the gap was not created by bad policy alone. It was created by an oil shock, a bond market repricing, a trade war, and a geopolitical environment that no housing strategy can fully survive. If it's his fault, what specifically should he have done differently? If it's not his fault, does that matter to the family that opened a mortgage statement and found out their home lost $166,000? That's not a trade statistic. That's not a headline number. That is a mortgage. A retirement plan? A child's education fund? Gone. And the forces that took it didn't come from inside the housing market. They came from the same geopolitical collision we track every single day on this channel. This is where ordinary Canadians feel the crisis. Not at the border, not in the headlines, but at the kitchen table. We cover this story daily because the data changes daily and because 38 million people deserve to understand what is actually happening to their net worth and why. If today's breakdown gave you something the headlines didn't, drop your answer to that final question in the comments. Is this Carney's fault, or is it the storm he couldn't stop? Hit like. It costs you nothing, and it tells the algorithm this analysis deserves to reach the people losing sleep over their mortgages tonight. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is the channel that connects those dots every single day, not once a week, every day, so you're never the last person in the room to understand what's really happening.